On a desolate street, a homeless boy found some documents that belonged to a millionaire. When he finally asked for what he desired in return, the millionaire, unable to hold back his tears, began to cry. The streets of the city were the only home that Lucas, a boy of barely 10 years, knew. For as long as he could remember, he had learned to survive on his own. His parents, trapped in a cycle of vices and poverty, had abandoned him when he was still a baby. Since then, Lucas had developed an innate cleverness to find food and shelter, whether by scavenging through trash or begging for alms. Despite the harsh circumstances, Lucas maintained an optimistic and resilient spirit. He knew his life wasn't easy, but he clung to the hope that one day things would get better. Every morning he woke up with a renewed desire to look for opportunities that might change his fate. That particular morning, Lucas got up before dawn, as usual. He stretched and looked around, seeing other street children who were also beginning to wake up, looking for something to fill their empty stomachs. Lucas set off, aware that he needed to take advantage of the early hours of the day to find food or something valuable that he could sell. He walked through the deserted streets, avoiding the few passers-by who were already beginning to circulate. His dirty and worn-out clothes contrasted with the elegant and opulent surroundings of that part of the city, where the mansions of the rich and powerful stood tall. Lucas knew he had to stay away from those places, as the police constantly patrolled the area looking for people like him. However, something urged him to approach one of the alleys between the grand houses. Maybe there, he could find something of value that no one else had noticed. Cautiously, Lucas ventured into the narrow passage, meticulously checking the garbage bins and dark corners. Suddenly, something shiny caught his attention. As he got closer, he realized it was a black leather briefcase, seemingly forgotten. Excited, Lucas picked it up and carefully opened it, hoping to find something he could sell. However, what he saw left him completely perplexed. Inside the briefcase was a large number of documents, all bearing seals and signatures that looked very important. Lucas examined them one by one, realizing they were the deeds to several properties, all under the name of one Joaquin Mendez, a wealthy local businessman. Surprised, Lucas sat down on the ground in the alley, unsure of what to do. These documents must have been worth a lot, and he couldn't help but think about the possibilities these properties opened up for him. Maybe he could have a different life, far from the poverty and misery that surrounded him every day. But something inside him told him he couldn't keep something that didn't belong to him. Lucas knew the right thing to do was to try to return these documents to their owner, and maybe, just maybe, the man might help him in return. It was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. Determined, Lucas stood up and began walking toward the imposing mansion that stood at the end of the street. His heart was pounding. A mix of excitement and nervousness flooded him. What if the man refused to help him? What if he accused him of theft? Lucas swallowed hard but continued walking, clutching the briefcase tightly. When he reached the entrance of the mansion, he paused for a moment, admiring the splendor of the place. He had never been so close to such a luxurious and elegant home. Taking a deep breath, Lucas approached the enormous wooden door and knocked. After a few minutes, the door opened, revealing a formal and stern-looking butler. "Yes? What do you want?" the man asked, eyeing Lucas with suspicion. "Good afternoon, sir," Lucas replied, trying to sound as respectful as possible. "I would like to speak with Mr. Joaquin Mendez if possible. It's something very important." The butler looked him up and down, clearly surprised that a ragged boy would present himself at his master's door. "What is this about?" he asked with skepticism. "Mr. Mendez does not receive visitors without notice. I found something that belongs to him," Lucas explained, showing the briefcase. "They are property deeds, and I think it's important that he gets them back." The butler's eyes widened in surprise as he saw the valuable contents of the briefcase. Without saying a word, he stepped back and closed the door, leaving Lucas alone and waiting anxiously on the doorstep. Minutes passed, which felt like an eternity for Lucas. Finally, the door opened again, and this time, it was Joaquin Mendez himself who appeared. He was a middle-aged man with an elegant and distinguished demeanor. His eyes scrutinized Lucas with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "What do you want, boy?" he asked in a deep voice. Lucas swallowed hard and stepped closer, extending the briefcase toward the man. "Mr. Mendez, I found this in an alley nearby," he explained with a trembling voice. "Inside are some property deeds that seem to belong to you. I don't know how they ended up there, but I believe they're yours." Mendez took the briefcase and opened it, quickly reviewing its contents. His expression changed from suspicion to surprise as he realized that they were indeed official documents related to his properties. Well, he muttered, more to himself than to Lucas. "So you found them. And what is it that you want in exchange for returning them?" Lucas was silent for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He had imagined the man would be grateful and perhaps offer him a reward, but the question caught him off guard. "I don't want anything in return, sir," he finally said, looking the man in the eyes. "I just wanted to make sure you got your documents back. They don't belong to me." Mendez observed him with an inscrutable expression, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. After a few moments of silence, a crooked smile appeared on his face. "Do you think I'm a fool, boy?" he asked in a mocking tone. "Everyone wants something in return, whether it's money or some other favor. What is it that you really want?" Lucas shuddered at the man's hostility but remained firm. "I swear I don't want anything," he insisted. "I'm just glad I could return what's yours." Mendez stared at him for a few moments as if trying to find some trace of deception in his words. Finally, his expression softened slightly, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Well, boy, I must admit you've surprised me," he said, accepting the briefcase that Lucas offered. "It's not very common to find someone so honest and selfless these days." Lucas felt relieved to see that the man seemed to believe him. However, his heart sank as he thought about the hardships he faced daily on the streets. Maybe this was a unique opportunity to ask for something in return and improve his situation. "Mr. Mendez," he ventured to say, "since I've returned your documents, could you maybe help me in some way?" The businessman raised an eyebrow as if he didn't quite understand the boy's request. "Help you? What do you mean?" he asked. Lucas bit his lower lip, feeling a wave of nervousness rush through his body. "I live on the street and sometimes it's really hard to get food and a place to sleep," he explained, lowering his gaze. "If you could give me some money or maybe a job, I would be really grateful." Mendez remained silent, observing Lucas with an expression the boy couldn't quite interpret. Finally, he let out a sigh and spoke again. "I must say your honesty has impressed me," he commented in a softer tone. "Most people in your situation would have tried to take advantage, but you've been sincere and done the right thing." Lucas looked up, feeling a glimmer of hope. "Does that mean you'll help me?" he asked in a trembling voice. Mendez looked at him for a few seconds, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, I can't do that," he replied, as Lucas felt his heart sink. "I can't give you money or offer you a job. I know it's tough, but I can't take responsibility for every child on the street." Lucas lowered his head, disappointed. He should have known that a man as rich and powerful as Mendez wouldn't care about someone like him. "I understand," he murmured, fighting back tears. But Mendez continued, making Lucas look up again. "I can help you in another way." The boy looked at him cautiously, not sure what to expect. "How?" he asked, with a slight glimmer of hope. Mendez smiled and stepped aside, gesturing toward the inside of the mansion. "Come with me," he said. "Let me at least offer you a hot meal and a safe place to sleep. It's not much, but it's what I can do for you." Lucas was speechless, surprised by the offer. He had never imagined that a man like Joaquin Mendez, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city, would invite him into his luxurious mansion. I don't know what to say," he stammered, incredulous. "Then don't say anything," Mendez replied with a kind smile. "Come in and rest for a while. You'll be safe here." In disbelief, Lucas nodded and followed the man through the enormous door, stepping into a world of opulence and privilege that had until then been foreign to him. As they walked through the hallways of the mansion, Lucas couldn't help but admire the luxury around him. He had never seen anything like it, and he found it hard to believe that all of it belonged to just one person. Finally, Mendez stopped in front of a carved wooden door and opened it, inviting Lucas to step inside. "This will be your room for the night," he said, watching the boy with a serene expression. "You can rest here, and then I'll prepare something for you to eat." Lucas cautiously entered the room, marveling at the splendor of it all. There was a large canopy bed, an elegant wardrobe, a dresser, and a bedside table. Everything was so perfect that Lucas was afraid to touch anything. "Thank you very much, Mr. Mendez," he murmured, unsure of what else to say. "Call me Joaquin," the man replied with a smile. "And you don't have to thank me. After all, you returned something valuable to me. This is the least I can do." Lucas nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and excitement. He had never imagined that his honesty would bring such an unexpected reward. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to let me know," Joaquin continued, heading toward the door. "I'll be in the kitchen preparing something to eat." Once alone, Lucas sat on the bed, still unable to believe what was happening. His eyes roamed the room, admiring every detail. Never before had he had the chance to rest in such a comfortable place. Slowly, he lay back on the bed, feeling how his body relaxed after so many nights on the cold streets. A feeling of peace washed over him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As he closed his eyes, Lucas allowed himself to dream of a different future. Maybe, just maybe, this opportunity could be the beginning of a new life. After having spent the most comforting night of his life, Lucas woke up with a sense of well-being he had never known. For years he had slept on the hard concrete of the streets, wrapped in thin clothing that barely protected him from the cold. But that morning, he found himself in a bed so soft that he could hardly believe it was real. Slowly opening his eyes, Lucas found himself surrounded by a luxurious room. Every detail of the elegant decor left him in awe. Everything seemed like part of a dream from which he had yet to wake, not understanding how he had come to such a place, so different from his everyday reality. As memories of the previous day came rushing back, Lucas quickly sat up, replaying the events in his mind. He had found a briefcase full of valuable documents and, by returning it to its owner, the wealthy Joaquin Mendez, he had been offered shelter and food in his own mansion as a reward. A wave of gratitude and hope filled Lucas's heart. Perhaps this unexpected opportunity marked the beginning of a better life, far removed from the hardships and uncertainties that had been his reality until now. Determined to make the most of this opportunity, Lucas got out of bed and headed to the door, intending to find Joaquin Mendez and express his gratitude once again. As he opened the door, Lucas came face to face with a formal-looking butler who observed him with a mixture of surprise and confusion. "I see you're already awake, young man," said the butler in a deep voice. "Mr. Mendez has asked me to escort you to the dining room whenever you're ready." Lucas nodded, feeling slightly intimidated by the severe-looking butler. "Thank you, sir," he replied politely. "I'm ready when you are." The butler nodded in acknowledgement and began to walk down the elegant hallway, closely followed by Lucas. As they walked, Lucas couldn't help but look around, astonished by the imposing beauty of the mansion. Every corner seemed to have been designed with exquisite taste, and Lucas wondered how someone could live in such opulence. Finally, they arrived at a large wooden door that the butler opened, revealing a dining room even more impressive than the rest of the house. A long mahogany table gleamed under the light from the enormous windows, and Lucas couldn't help but feel like he didn't belong in this world of luxury and splendor. Joaquin Mendez sat at the head of the table, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. When he saw Lucas, he offered a warm smile and gestured for him to come closer. "Good morning, boy," he greeted him. "I'm glad to see you rested well. Please come and sit with me." Lucas hesitated for a moment, feeling out of place in such an elegant setting. However, Joaquin's kind invitation made him feel a bit more comfortable, and he approached the table, taking a seat in the chair the wealthy man indicated. "I hope you had a good night," Joaquin continued, pouring a cup of coffee and offering it to Lucas. "You look much more rested than you did yesterday." "Yes, sir. Thank you very much," Lucas replied, carefully holding the cup. He had never slept in such a comfortable bed before. Joaquin nodded, satisfied, and leaned back in his chair, observing the boy closely. "Tell me, boy, what's your name?" he asked curiously. "My name is Lucas, sir," the boy responded, feeling slightly intimidated by the man's scrutinizing gaze. "Well, Lucas, it's a pleasure to meet you," Joaquin said with a smile. "How old are you?" "I'm 10 years old, sir," Lucas answered, feeling as though his voice sounded too childish in such an imposing setting. Joaquin nodded thoughtfully, and then his expression darkened slightly. "Tell me, Lucas, how did you end up living on the streets?" he asked in a more serious tone. Lucas tensed a little at the question, unsure of how to respond. For years he had learned to keep his story to himself, afraid that it might bring him trouble. "Well, my parents abandoned me when I was very little," he answered quietly. "Since then, I've had to fend for myself." Joaquin shook his head in sorrow. No one, and certainly not a child, should have to go through something like that. Lucas shrugged, trying to downplay his situation. "I guess I've had to get used to it," he said with a sad smile. "But yesterday, when I found your documents, I thought maybe you could help me in some way." Joaquin looked at him silently for a few moments, as if pondering something. Then he sighed and leaned slightly forward, fixing his gaze on Lucas. "Tell me, Lucas, what is it that you really want?" he asked seriously. "What do you hope to gain in return for returning those documents to me?" Lucas was a bit taken aback by the question. He had believed that his honesty and goodwill would be enough to earn Joaquin's trust, but now it seemed that the man still doubted his intentions. "I don't want anything in return, sir," Lucas responded sincerely. "I just wanted to do the right thing and give back what belonged to you. I don't have any other demands." Joaquin observed him carefully, as if trying to detect any sign of deception in his words. "Are you sure about that, Lucas?" he insisted. "Most people in your situation would have tried to take advantage of this opportunity." Lucas shook his head, feeling a lump form in his throat. "I swear I don't want anything more than a home and a family that loves me," Lucas said, his voice trembling. "I know it's a lot to ask, but it's the only thing I've wished for as long as I can remember." Joaquin remained silent, visibly surprised by the sincerity and humility in the boy's words. For a few brief moments, Lucas could see a flicker of emotion reflected in the millionaire's eyes. Finally, Joaquin cleared his throat and, with a soft voice, replied, "Lucas, I must say you've impressed me. Most in your situation would have tried to take advantage of this opportunity, but you've shown honesty and humility that are truly admirable." Lucas felt his heart race, filled with hope at Joaquin's words. "Mr. Mendez, he began to say, but the millionaire interrupted him with a gesture. "Let me finish, please," Joaquin said with a calm expression. "After hearing you, I realize that what you're asking for is not something material or selfish, but something much deeper and more valuable. A home and a family that loves you." He paused, and for a moment Lucas thought he saw a hint of sadness in his gaze. "Unfortunately, I can't offer you a job or give you money," Joaquin continued, "but perhaps I can offer you something even more important." Lucas looked at him, barely daring to breathe, eager to hear what the millionaire was about to say. "If you allow me," Joaquin said with a gentle smile, "I'd like you to live with me in this house. I'd like you to let me be your family." Lucas was stunned, unable to believe what he had just heard. Was Joaquin Mendez, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the city, offering to be his family? "Are you serious?" Lucas stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Completely serious, boy," Joaquin replied with conviction. "I know it's an unexpected offer, but after what you've done and what you've told me, I've realized that perhaps I can offer more than just gifts or material rewards." Lucas felt like he couldn't catch his breath. Never in his life had he imagined that someone could offer him something like this, and now he was facing the possibility of having a home and a family, something he had longed for so long. "I don't know what to say," he whispered, his voice trembling. This is too much." Joaquin extended his hand and gently placed it on Lucas's shoulder, looking at him with a paternal expression. "I know it's an overwhelming offer," he said softly, "but I want you to know that I mean it. I'd like you to stay here with me and let me be the family you've always wished for." Lucas felt tears start to well up in his eyes. For years he had learned to survive alone, not to trust anyone, and not to expect anything from anyone. And now, this unexpected opportunity was hitting him with a force that left him breathless. I don't know what to say," he repeated, sobbing. "I never thought someone like you could want someone like me." Joaquin looked at him with a warm smile and gently squeezed his shoulder. "Well, boy," he said firmly, "that's exactly what I want. I want you to be part of my life, to be my family." Lucas felt his heart overflow with emotion. For years he had longed for a home, for a family that would love and care for him, and now that opportunity was right in front of him, offered by this powerful and respectable man who was giving him something he could never have imagined. Unable to hold back his tears, Lucas threw himself into Joaquin's arms, hugging him tightly. The millionaire wrapped his arms around him in a paternal gesture, offering the comfort and warmth that the boy had craved his entire life. "Thank you, Mr. Mendez," Lucas sobbed through his tears. "Thank you for wanting to be my family." Joaquin smiled, gently stroking the boy's head. "Call me Joaquin, Lucas," he said tenderly. "And you don't have to thank me. This is what I want, and I hope it's what you want too." Lucas pulled back from the embrace and looked at Joaquin with a radiant smile, nodding enthusiastically. "Yes, sir, Joaquin," he corrected himself, feeling the name roll naturally off his tongue. "I want this more than anything in the world." Joaquin smiled back at him. Joaquin returned the smile, pleased, and gestured for Lucas to come closer to the table. "So, what do you say we start enjoying this delicious breakfast together?" he suggested, serving a plate full of food. "You must be hungry after everything you've been through." Lucas nodded, feeling his stomach growl at the tempting sight of the food. He took a seat next to Joaquin and, for the first time in a long while, enjoyed a delicious and comforting meal, surrounded by the warmth and safety of this unexpected home. As breakfast went on, Lucas felt increasingly comfortable and relaxed. Joaquin spoke to him kindly and asked about his interests and dreams, showing genuine interest in getting to know him better. At one point, Joaquin cleared his throat and looked at Lucas seriously. "Tell me, Lucas, have you ever been to school?" he asked. Lucas shook his head, feeling a twinge of shame. "No, Mr. Joaquin," he answered timidly. "I've never had the chance to go to school." Joaquin nodded, thoughtful. "Well, that's going to change," he said with determination. "From now on, I want you to go to school and focus on learning everything you can. I want you to have all the opportunities I didn't have when I was young." Lucas looked at him in astonishment, not knowing what to say. The idea of going to school, something that had always seemed like an unreachable dream, filled him with excitement and hope. "Really?" he stammered, unable to believe what he was hearing. "You want me to go to school?" Joaquin gave him an encouraging smile. Lucas fell silent, overwhelmed by Joaquin Mendez's generous offer. For years he had dreamed of having a home and a family that loved him, but he had never imagined that such an opportunity would come from a man so powerful and wealthy. "I don't know what to say," he stammered, feeling tears threatening to well up in his eyes once again. "It's too much, Mr. Mendez. I never thought someone like you would want someone like me." Joaquin looked at him with a warm and understanding expression, then gently placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Lucas, let me tell you something," Joaquin began softly. "For many years, I've been so deeply immersed in my businesses and accumulating wealth that I've forgotten the most important thing, having a real family by my side." He paused, and for a fleeting moment Lucas could sense a hint of melancholy in his eyes. "When I saw you at my door, with that sincerity and humility, something in me awakened," Joaquin continued. "I realized that by helping you I might find something beyond a simple material reward. I could find the home and family I've always longed for." Lucas looked at him in astonishment, unable to believe that such an influential and powerful man could feel that kind of need. "But why me?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why would you want a boy like me in your life?" Joaquin smiled kindly and gently squeezed his shoulder. "Because you, Lucas, have shown a noble and pure heart," he replied. "Despite the difficulties you've faced, you've maintained your integrity, and that's something I deeply value and admire." Tears began to well up in Lucas's eyes once again. Never before had anyone spoken such comforting words to him, let alone considered him worthy of being a part of their life. "Mr. Mendez," he corrected, his voice breaking, "I don't know how to thank you for all of this. You have no idea what it means to me." Joaquin smiled warmly and gently squeezed his hand. "You don't have to thank me for anything, Lucas," he said firmly. "You're the one giving me the chance to have a family. Let me be the father you never had." Lucas felt his heart overflow with emotion. For years he had longed for a father figure to guide and protect him, and now, through this unexpected encounter, it seemed that possibility was becoming a reality. Unable to contain himself, Lucas rose from his chair and approached Joaquin, hugging him tightly. The millionaire wrapped his arms around him in a warm, paternal gesture, offering the comfort and security the boy had yearned for his entire short life. "Thank you, Joaquin," Lucas sobbed, burying his face in the man's chest. "Thank you for wanting to be my family." Joaquin held him even tighter, gently running his hand through the boy's hair with tenderness. "You are my family now, Lucas," he murmured, his voice slightly trembling. "And I will do everything in my power to make sure you never have to go through the hardships you faced again." They remained like that for a few minutes, both moved by the intensity of the moment. Finally, Joaquin gently pulled back and took Lucas's face in his hands, looking at him with an expression of deep emotion. "Welcome to your new home, son," he said with a radiant smile. Lucas returned the smile, feeling his heart swell with happiness. For the first time in his life, he truly felt at home, protected, and loved. From that moment on, Lucas's life began to transform completely. Joaquin, with a mix of tenderness and determination, made sure to provide Lucas with everything he had lacked during his childhood on the streets. First, he made sure Lucas had a room of his own, decorated with everything he needed to feel comfortable and at ease. The boy couldn't believe that the luxurious and elegant space was now his bedroom, and he spent hours admiring each of the details. Then, Joaquin took care of getting new, high-quality clothes for Lucas, replacing the worn and dirty garments he had worn for years. Seeing the boy dressed in clean, well-cared-for clothes seemed to erase any trace of his past on the streets. But beyond material possessions, Joaquin dedicated himself to giving Lucas all the love and attention a father could give to a son. They spent hours talking together, sharing meals, and exploring the many corners of the grand mansion. Lucas felt increasingly comfortable and secure in that environment, and slowly, he began to see Joaquin as the father figure he had always longed for. One of the most important promises Joaquin made to Lucas was to provide him with an education. The boy, who had never had the chance to go to school, was thrilled to know that he would now have the opportunity to learn and develop his full potential. Joaquin took care of enrolling Lucas in a prestigious private school, making sure the boy had everything he needed to adjust to the new environment and succeed in his studies. At first, Lucas felt a little intimidated and out of place, surrounded by other children who seemed to come from well-off families. However, with Joaquin's patience and constant support, he began to gain confidence and excel in his classes. The teachers were pleasantly surprised by the boy's dedication and intelligence, and soon Lucas became one of the top students in his grade. Joaquin watched with pride as his new adopted son made progress, making sure to reward and encourage him to keep striving. Beyond formal education, Joaquin also ensured that Lucas had all kinds of enriching experiences. He took him to museums, concerts, and to visit iconic places around the city. Joaquin wanted Lucas to have the opportunity to broaden his horizons and discover a world that had until then been completely foreign to him. With each new activity, Lucas was more and more amazed, surprised by the cultural and artistic richness that was being revealed to him. Slowly, he was leaving behind the shadows of his past on the streets and immersing himself in this new world full of opportunities. But without a doubt, what made Lucas happiest was the warm relationship he had built with Joaquin. The millionaire had become an exceptional father figure, giving him all the love and attention the boy had longed for. After spending so much time together, Joaquin and Lucas had created a deep bond, full of shared afternoons talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Joaquin was genuinely interested in Lucas's dreams and concerns, always striving to provide him with the support and resources he needed to develop fully. Lucas, in turn, had fully embraced this new relationship, leaving behind the fears and distrust that had marked his difficult life on the streets. Little by little, he learned to open up and trust this man he now considered his father. One night, while they were sitting in front of the fireplace, Lucas found the courage to express what he truly felt. "Joaquin," he said shyly, Can I call you Dad?" The millionaire looked at him with a beaming expression, and a smile appeared on his face. "It would be an honor for me, son," he replied, extending his hand to take Lucas's. Lucas smiled back, feeling his heart swell with happiness. For years he had dreamed of having a father who would love and care for him, and now that dream had come true. Slowly he leaned toward Joaquin and hugged him tightly, letting tears of gratitude roll down his cheeks. "Thank you, Dad," he murmured, his voice trembling. "Thank you for everything." Joaquin held him close, gently stroking his head. "Thank you, Lucas," he replied emotionally. "You've given me the chance to have the family I always dreamed of." From that day on, Lucas's life changed radically. He was no longer an abandoned and lonely boy, condemned to survive on the streets. He was now a young man with a home, a family, and a future full of possibilities. Joaquin made sure he had everything he needed to grow and develop fully, enrolling him in music, art, and sports classes, and ensuring he received the highest level of education, with the best tutors, and in the most prestigious schools in the city. The boy who once believed his destiny was to remain in misery and abandonment now found himself surrounded by opportunities and privileges he had never imagined. Over time, Lucas blossomed, transforming into a confident young man with a great curiosity for the world around him. His teachers and mentors were amazed by his intelligence, dedication, and thirst for knowledge. Joaquin, for his part, was filled with pride as he watched his adoptive son grow and achieve each of his goals. He had found in Lucas the family he had always desired, and he devoted himself entirely to giving him all the support and love possible. Together, father and son forged an unbreakable bond based on trust, respect, and mutual affection. Joaquin became a role model for Lucas, and Lucas, in turn, became the reason for the millionaire's happiness. The day of Lucas's graduation arrived, and Joaquin could not contain his pride. Sitting in the front row, he watched with a radiant smile as his son walked up to the stage to receive his university diploma, crowning years of hard work and dedication. When Lucas finally approached to shake the hand of the dean, Joaquin held back tears of emotion, vividly recalling the day that the homeless boy had knocked on his door, returning some documents and earning his trust with his honesty and humility. He never would have imagined that this fortuitous encounter would change both their lives completely. After the ceremony, Joaquin met Lucas, who welcomed him with a tight hug. "You did it, son," exclaimed Joaquin, giving him a pat on the back. "I'm so proud of you." Lucas gave him a radiant smile, his eyes shining with happiness. This wonderful journey was met with applause and cheers from those present, deeply moved by Joaquin's sincere words. Lucas, his eyes filled with tears, approached his father and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered in a trembling voice. "Thank you for everything." Joaquin hugged him firmly, a radiant smile lighting up his face. "It's me who should be thanking you, son," he replied, gently stroking Lucas's hair. "You've given me more than I ever could have imagined." The celebration continued with more toasts, dancing, and joy, but Lucas could barely focus on anything other than the immense gratitude that filled his heart. Years ago, he would never have dreamed of living a life like this, surrounded by people who loved and appreciated him. When the party finally came to an end and the last guests said their goodbyes, Joaquin and Lucas were left alone, enjoying the quiet of the night. "Dad," Lucas said, breaking the silence, "can I ask you something?" Joaquin looked at him with a warm smile. "Of course, son. You know you can ask me anything." Lucas took a deep breath before continuing. "Have you ever regretted bringing me into your life?" he asked with a hint of insecurity in his voice. "I mean, I know I'm not your biological son, and—" Before he could finish, Joaquin interrupted him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Lucas, listen to me carefully," he said firmly. "I have never, not for a single moment, regretted opening the doors of my home and heart to you." He paused, looking at Lucas with a sincere expression. "You are my son regardless of blood ties," he continued. "You are the best decision I ever made, and I feel deeply grateful that you came into my life." Lucas felt his heart swell with emotion at hearing those words. For years, he had harbored the insecurity that one day Joaquin might grow tired of him or regret taking him in. But now, the resolute words of his adoptive father dispelled any doubts. "Dad, Lucas hesitated, searching for the right words. "I feel so lucky that you decided to give me a chance. You've been the best father a boy like me could have ever dreamed of." Joaquin smiled at him lovingly and pulled him into a paternal embrace. "You are an extraordinary young man, Lucas," he murmured, "and I'm sure your future will be even brighter." Lucas returned the embrace, feeling more protected and loved than ever before. "Thank you, Dad. I'll do everything I can to honor your trust in me." After a few minutes, they separated, and Joaquin gave him an encouraging smile. "Well, now that you've finished your studies, do you have any plans or ideas about what you want to do next?" he asked curiously. Lucas looked at him with determination. "Actually, I do," he responded confidently. "I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think I've found my calling." Joaquin listened attentively, eager to hear his son's dreams and aspirations. "I want to dedicate myself to philanthropy and social work," Lucas explained. "I want to use my education and privileges to help others who, like me, have gone through difficult situations." Joaquin's face lit up with a proud smile. "That's wonderful, Lucas," he said, gently squeezing his shoulder. "You've always had the heart of a true philanthropist." Lucas nodded, excited to share his plans with his father. "I want to create a foundation to help disadvantaged children and young people," he continued. "I want to give them the opportunities you gave me, so they can have a better future." Joaquin looked at him with deep pride and admiration. "You know you have my full support in making that dream a reality," he assured him. "And not only that, but I want to be an active part of the project as well." Lucas looked at him surprised. "Really, Dad?" he asked with a radiant smile. "Of course," Joaquin responded with conviction. "Together, we will make a difference in the lives of many young people who, like you, need a chance." Overcome with emotion, Lucas hugged his father again, feeling like his heart was about to burst with happiness. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered. "Thank you for believing in me and supporting my dreams." Joaquin returned the hug, gently stroking his back. "You are my dream come true, Lucas," he responded, his voice slightly trembling. "And together, we will make the world a better place." In the following months, Lucas and Joaquin dedicated themselves to bringing their ambitious project to life. Together, they created the Lucas Foundation, a non-profit organization focused on providing comprehensive support to vulnerable children and young people. With his vast experience and resources, Joaquin took charge of the administrative side and ensured the foundation's financial sustainability. Meanwhile, Lucas focused on establishing scholarship programs, community centers, and training workshops, pouring all his enthusiasm and heart into the noble cause. Little by little, the Lucas Foundation grew and expanded, making a significant impact on the lives of hundreds of young people. Lucas became the public face of the organization, inspiring others with his story of overcoming adversity and his unwavering commitment. Joaquin, meanwhile, stayed in the background, but his presence and support were essential. He watched with pride as his adopted son became a respected and admired leader, feeling deeply grateful for the chance to welcome Lucas into his life. Together, father and son developed a unique synergy, complementing each other's skills and working closely to take the Lucas Foundation to new and exciting heights. As the years passed, the foundation became one of the most recognized philanthropic institutions in the city. Lucas and Joaquin became prominent figures in the community, receiving numerous awards and honors for their work. But beyond the achievements and recognition, what truly filled both of them with satisfaction was seeing how their work transformed the lives of the young people they helped. Watching those children and teenagers flourish, find direction and pave their way toward a better future was the greatest reward they could imagine. At one of the foundation's annual galas, Lucas stood up to give a speech. With a proud smile, he looked at the crowd and began to speak. "Years ago, a man gave me an opportunity that changed my life completely," he recounted while Joaquin watched him closely. "He opened the doors of his home and gave me something I had never had before, a family." He paused, and Lucas could see his father's eyes glistening with emotion. "Thanks to that act of generosity and love, I was able to achieve my dreams and become the person I am today," he continued, his voice filled with emotion. "And now, alongside my father, I have the honor of being able to offer other young people the same opportunity that was given to me." The crowd erupted in applause, moved by Lucas's words. "Our goal is to give the children and teenagers in our community a home, a family, and a future full of possibilities," Lucas declared with conviction, "because each one of them deserves the chance to flourish and reach their full potential." Joaquin from his seat smiled with tears in his eyes, proud to see how his son had grown into an exceptional man, guided by compassion and the desire to do good. When Lucas finished his speech, Joaquin approached him and hugged him tightly, unable to hold back his emotions. "I'm so proud of you, son," he whispered with a trembling voice. "You've made a dream come true that I didn't even know I had." Lucas returned the hug, smiling with a happiness that lit up his face. "And I'm grateful to be able to share this dream with you, Dad," he responded sincerely. "Together, we're going to change the world." Joaquin nodded with a beaming smile. "Yes, son, together we will." In the following years, the Lucas Foundation solidified its position as one of the most influential philanthropic institutions in the region. Under Lucas's leadership and with Joaquin's unwavering support, the organization expanded its programs and reached thousands of young people, providing them with opportunities for education, personal development, and comprehensive support. Lucas became a well-known social leader, respected for his vision, dedication, and unshakable commitment to the cause. Joaquin, for his part, remained in the background, but his presence and backing were crucial to the foundation's growth and success. Together, father and son transformed lives, opening doors and sowing hope in those who, like Lucas, had once been condemned to adversity. Every time a child or teenager overcame their obstacles, Joaquin and Lucas felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their efforts had been truly rewarded.